Don't slurp it off. Can you drink your drink without slurping? All right. Cheers, Ben. Here we go. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sci under the Believe podcast network. It is indeed a podcast about Black science fiction and fantasy and staying on the same page as a family. Today for episode 105, we'll be discussing some road trips, 5G, and Woke Season 2, created by Keith Knight, because we watched Season 1 last time, and then we watched Season 2. But before we get started, we do want to shout out a couple of special people that made and make our lives and our road trip and our everything just so much easier to continue bringing you content. That is the patrons, aka the Country Club. If you are looking to be a member of this luxurious club where we give you updates and all the good things, be sure to check out the Patreon link in the episode notes. Remember, you can give $1, $2, $5 a month, and when we finish creating and decorating this amazing new space that we have in LA, we will be giving the patrons a first look at a home tour. And those special people are Megan, Brittany Martin, Keela Jordan, Kendra Thompson, Stephanie, Tiffany, Brittany, Honora Banks, and Kenetha Brittman. Thank you so much, patrons. And every week we'll be shouting y'all out. Today, clink these glasses one more time. We have successfully arrived and we are setting up shop in Los Angeles, our brand new home. So thank you for being patient with us. We know we did not get to record an episode last week. We was literally on the road and in and out of hotels, and we're here now. So anyway, Ben, how you doing, baby boy?
You said you were going to give people a tour of the home. One of the things that Amber is going to give you a tour of are all these fucking decorative pillows. There's so many. Amber sort of gets on my case about cluttering, and Amber likes to clutter a couch with decorative pillows. Why do you like decorative pillows so much?
Decorative pillows warm the space. Pillows say, like, come sit on me. You're invited to lie here and rest here. You're going to need these pillows whenever we get into an argument. And then you're going to be like, oh, I obviously had to sleep on the couch tonight. And you're going to be like, great, Amber padded this couch with decorative pillows. I most certainly did.
Sound off, listeners. Pillows suck, like decorative pillows, because you sit down, you're sort of squirming through the pillow. You're trying to find a spot to sit. They're sort of like big pimples for couches. Pillows are big pimples for couches.
Patrons, we're going to ask the patrons, do you have decorative pillows in your home? Aren't they warming and comforting? You can make them seasonal. You remember Starbucks actually bought me these pillows. So I got to get these pillows on somebody else's dime, which is the best way to get anything these days. So I'm going to put these pillows to use. These pillows are currently supporting my back. And Ben, you have a tendency of leaning back during the show. So actually, these pillows are going to have your back as well when you inevitably start slouching. I love you.
I didn't slouch during the road trip. I took my responsibility seriously. What was the best part about the road trip for you?
I've said it once. I've said it again. Ben, you do a really great job of showing up when it counts, when it matters.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're day to day. Sometimes you be lacking.
Nope.
Sometimes you really slack off during the day.
But positive.
But you were so clutch. You booked every single hotel. You researched them well. We were comfortable at every single place we went to. Every place had a pack and play, just those little things. We were able to say you and me, you and the dog. Yep. Wild. I was like, I'm forgetting someone. Who is it? So I just cannot thank you enough for just making sure we got here safely and comfortably. You are a huge person to celebrate, and a huge part of the reason that we got here safely and comfortably. So that was my favorite part.
Well, you're the reason why we're here. So
how am I the reason why we're here, Ben?
Well, we moved here for your career so you could pursue your dream in the showbiz. By the way, what were some of the first things you've noticed between LA and Chicago?
LA is not walkable at all, y'all. We're getting our shit together. So in Chicago, you can just be like, let me walk to that bar down the street.
Chicago's a pancake. Yeah, pancake city. Chicago's pancake city. This is not. LA is like it's a Belgian waffle. Belgian waffles, they have the little
LA is
hills.
like a huevos rancheros. It's chilaquiles. It's just like ups and downs, and there's a jalapeno and there's some sour cream, and so Ben and I, even when something says like, oh, this is a 6-minute walk away, Ben and I'll be like, yeah, we'll easily walk that,
Yeah.
but you'll just be hiking up the steepest hill ever.
Fantastic.
So we're getting adjusted there, but I am enjoying the weather.
Your ass and Serena Williams.
I said, if I continue walking up these hills the way I do, my ass is going to sit on my back. Since I had the baby, my ass has been slouching.
Can you give me the visual for that?
The visual is, you see the ash, right?
Okay.
You want the ash to be tooted. You want there to be some buoyancy to the ass.
So where's the
you
muscle?
You can throw a quarter on your ass and it'll pop back. You want it to be
Which part
lifted.
of the ass? Is it the upper ass or the lower? Like, is it...
The whole glute cheek muscle.
Oh, so it's
you want it to be lifted
the glute, so
because
not the ass.
It's like with boobs too. It's like they sag over time, especially now that I'm breastfed.
There's muscles in
they've
your
been
boobs?
completely deflated. I'm just saying, you like a nice perky if you're watching the YouTube video. I'm giving a great visual.
You
want
can
a nice
work out to get perky boobs.
No, not to my knowledge, but you can work out to get a perky
you
ass.
Get abs, and
you
then
can
your
do like a
abs push up
natural
your boobs.
Brazilian butt lift if you work out enough.
So it's like an LA butt lift.
Yeah, I'm gonna have that LA booty. I got that GA booty, flattened out pancake by Chicago booty, and now it's gonna be rooted and tooted Serena Williams booty on my back again.
Yeah, there's no walking to a bar here.
No, not
you
at
can't
all.
put on a hill and clickety clack. Someone was saying to us, we had a friend come over. Like for me, I was like, oh man, I could walk to Hop Leaf. I could literally jog to the Annoyance Bar and Theater.
We were still pretty far for you to do that, but you're right.
But for me, I mean, even Hop Leaf was less than a mile from.
Okay, what was your favorite part of the road
Cheeks.
trip? See, this is you going negative. What was your favorite part of the road trip?
The best part of the road trip.
My singing
trip was for sure listening to audiobooks. I listened to Thud by Terry Pratchett, and it was just really wonderful to drive through Arizona, to see landscapes I've never seen before. Like I've been telling Amber, I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Red Dead Redemption, which is a video game I really enjoy playing. Or we drove through a part of Wyoming, and it reminded me of a really sort of noir kind of Western film, neo-Western film called Wind River. And then also remind me of Horizon Zero Dawn. So sort of these beautiful, like, desolate landscapes were pretty haunting. And
Ben, tell the good people you've already also started making friends a little bit. Which, I'm going to make friends.
Yeah,
but like,
I got
you're
friends.
making friends.
Yeah, I joined a running club. I joined a comic book reading group. We read one comic book a month. And it's been really great to reach out to people. There's a yoga studio right near us that's like one of the things we could walk to.
Yes.
And it's completely
even with
flat.
the hill, we'll put up with those hills because
Not
those
even a
yoga
hill.
classes have been amazing.
Is there a hill walking there?
I think so. It's like down one and then up.
You know, stairs aren't hills, Amber.
No, that's not. No, these is big booty hills. Ass hills. Ass hills.
I'm actually pretty proud of that. You want to read this podcast review?
I do. We missed y'all so much last week. Ben and I had a moment this week. I was like, oh my God, it has been forever since we recorded the podcast. He was like, it's been a week. Relax. But anyway, remember, if you are someone who's like, I want to get involved. I love you guys. You keep me entertained, but I don't have the money for the Patreon right now. Womp, womp, womp. You can still listen to it, friends. You can still lend your generous words to the wonderful world of Apple Podcasts. We're reading an Apple Podcast review right now. This one's from Lick Rich. Lick is in like liquor. Liq. Lick Rich says, I'm here for it. I started off watching your TikToks and I've fallen in love with your podcast as well. You guys are hilarious, genuine, and really put me onto some good movies and books. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll be here to support and wish you guys nothing but success in all you do. People are really supportive.
I love it.
I want to teach everybody, because sometimes people come up to me all the time. They're like, how do you continue creating? How do you not get burnt out? And I've shared this story about the yoga studio, right? Can you give me 30 seconds to say that story?
I think you've shared it on this podcast before.
Okay, I'm gonna say it again. It's
quicker.
just this. Damn, I can't. Why are we rushing?
Faster.
We already didn't give the people. So, as a yoga teacher, it's a really good practice at the end of a class to just have a moment of vulnerability, maybe with your class. It doesn't have to be some like deep dark trauma of yours. But it's really nice when a teacher says like, currently in my practice in my life, I'm going through blank. So I used to share stories all the time when I became a really new baby yoga teacher. And then one day I noticed a couple of people in the class would like sneak out early to go do things. And then after that, I was like, you know what? No, like I'm not sharing anymore. I taught this amazing class. I wanted to do a personal share, and I saw a couple people sneak out the room, and now I don't want to be vulnerable. The wall is up. And so one day, one of my yoga mentors came up to me and they were like, why did you stop sharing? Like the best parts of your class was you doing some funny anecdote at the end of the class. And I was like, well, I stopped sharing because people were leaving early, and that's weird if I'm getting vulnerable and somebody's like, I don't have time for this stupid sob story. I'm out. And my teacher just reminded me, my mentor reminded me, well, what about all the people that stayed, that held that space, that wanted to hear your story? Like you're paying so much attention to the 2 or 3 people that left, and you're not paying attention and providing space for the 30 people that stayed to listen to your story. And so I always tell people, like, no matter how nervous you are to like post that thing or tell that story, to the people that stayed to listen and provided you that space, like that's why you make that shit. That's why I have a compulsion to create. And there are so many incredible people that are continued to tell us like, just keep doing it. Like, what's wrong with it? I was talking to a friend recently and he's like, I want to post this thing, but I'm going to be mad if it gets 3 likes and I'm going to take it down. He's like, how do you get over, being nervous about what people think? And I drunkenly was like, here's the thing, my guy. If I post it, it's funny. If I eat it, it's delicious. Okay. If I suck it, it's sexy, right? Just like mentally, that's what you have to tell yourself every single day. Right, Ben?
Yeah.
If I record it, somebody go listen to this shit. Even 2 years ago when we started the podcast, we still had like 80 people listening and saying like, yeah, you like it? I love it. Keep going with this shit. I can listen to some on the way to work or some on the way to a horrible conversation, breaking up with my boyfriend. And I needed these laughs. Ben, gas yourself up. We're still doing this shit.
Yeah, we 100%
Am I on my soapbox?
No,
Am I being a narcissist?
No, well, always, but
here we go.
I think something that made me realize is we are in, horror season, so I'm going to watch the film Bodies, but one of the actresses got a really negative review, and the actress, in a very unprofessional manner, reached out to the writer, and then the writer responded. It became a whole big thing. Anyway, my thing though is like,
you thought that was unprofessional of her?
Yeah,
even though the author
to reach out to as an
that's
actress,
kind of strange. I know the streets were
critic.
really team Amanda, but everybody's going to critique what you do at some level.
I think the critic's response to that was even more unprofessional.
Absolutely. Okay, that's all I need to say. That's all I need to say.
The critic response was fucking stupid. But I think the critic had probably never gotten that kind of attention. Like, listen, if you are a creator, an actress, and you put your stuff out there, people are going to say really stupid shit. They're going to body shame you, all that stuff. And you could focus on that, but it will tear you down when you hone on that. So what I've started to do, if someone says some like really fucked up shit about something that I do, just look for somebody who's going to gas you up and say the positive.
There's way more of those people.
So in this situation, this actress read a terrible review that sort of pinpointed her. You know what she should have done? She should have went and found a different review and read it to make herself sort of feel, like, no, what I did was a good performance. What the film I was a great film, and sort of just remind yourself about that. But never reach out to the people who say shit to you, because that's what they want you to fucking do.
Of course they do.
That's why I think Amanda was in this case unprofessional. Whatever. What's the actress's name?
I think it's Amanda, but I like the idea of you calling Amanda.
I think her decision to do that was unprofessional. But again, to be clear, I think the critic's response to that was even more idiotic.
I was like, why? Just let it die. Sometimes a fire be trying to go out and people be putting lighter fluid on it. Anyway, listen to the people in your life that gas you up. Turn those things on. Now, there is definitely, and Ben and I have been talking about this in our relationship, there's definitely a difference between like a bad review of your work and somebody actually trying to give you constructive feedback, because I am somebody who does not take constructive feedback well.
It's sort of hard for you to see the difference between the two at times.
Yes. Well, because I tell Ben this all the time, but it matters who the messenger is. I know that that's really shitty, but when Kim K said, get your fucking ass up at work, like, That's a good message, but it matters who the messenger is. It really does. So when Ben is telling me to get my shit together, meanwhile, I'm like, you know,
Your shit's not together.
right.
You haven't
I'm
even
like,
taken a shit to put together.
right. Now, hold on. You ain't even took a shit this morning. Okay. So why don't you go sit on the pot? You do some work and then you can come at me. But that's not true because Ben does have my best interest at heart. Anyway, let's talk about woke season 2 because we'll get into it.
So basically, if you've seen the first season, this would be a sequel to that. I'll give a short summary. Keith Knight has become a woke social media activist, which is pretty different than a regular activist. Ayanna, who's an actual activist, sort of focuses on her story, her newspaper that is slowly dying. She's had to basically fire everybody. And then it also follows Clovis, who he's gotten ripped and strong, and now he's starting to like become a better man, and he finds a love interest. And he's trying not to be such a terrible straight dude. Who's the Blake
Anderson?
His character's name.
Gunther?
Just keep on.
No development whatsoever.
No development. He's just.
He's very funny though. Very funny, but not much development as a character.
And then you get Laura, who is a very wealthy Latino woman who is investing in Keith Knight, and she's a millionaire. And there's this whole question of like, can you be an activist and be a millionaire? And the show doesn't really answer that. I think it sort of settles on that you probably can't. Basically, every rich person, for them to get really wealthy, you have to tear down people. You have to take advantage of people, which is a conversation I have a bunch with my dad when I go home. So, yeah, that's Woke Season 2. Lots of things are going on. Keith Knight is working on the Keith Knight Project, which is to give shoes to all the unhoused.
Yeah, this season, there were lots of great jokes. What this show does really well is a lot of funky wordplay and a lot of kooky characters. At some point this season, Clovis's or T Murph's dad, there's one episode just with his dad and how kooky his dad is because he's like hotep to the extreme. He's like, oh son, don't tell me you eat pussy now. Like, people, y'all go changing pronouns. They trying to get the black man that, just very hotep-y. And there are some funny quips here and there, but I think what this season really lacks is character development, clear story arc. It's like they took something funny and everybody's like, "Ooh, what if Keith Knight sold or gifted people who are homeless shoes? And then what if people had a conspiracy that those shoes had 5G in them? And what if they actually had 5G in them? And what if those shoes combusted into flames?" And it's like, okay, fine, but what happened to these like fantastical characters and his subconscious? What happened to any sort of character development? Like at one point, Ayanna is like dating lots of different people, but then she's kind of not dating people, and Clovis gets a girlfriend, but they just kind of hang out and bop around together. There's no clear like, wow, these characters really have become different people. And I don't know, it was really hard near the end, like at the finale episode. I was like, Ben, what's happening now? So near the end of the season, that what's happening now is like, I get why this was canceled, sadly. So funny though, but yeah.
Yeah, well, this whole thing becomes more about community. So I think the show was trying to struggled to find what it was going to be, because it turns into this sitcom, basically.
Yeah.
Like, think of New Girl, and it, obviously the main character is, was very famously on New Girl.
But it also feels that whole of like, they're giving a little bit of Atlanta vibes here. And then it becomes like, well, what need is this show filling if it's doing exactly what these 4 other sitcoms are doing in one little stew?
I think so. The main plot is what Amber said, is that Keith Knight has this money. He's created a social media platform talking about his assault by the police and standing up to the San Francisco PD.
That was great.
Yes. So it starts with that. He wants to give shoes to everybody. He gets an investor, But it turns out, and I thought this was more of like a science fictional part. This is what they call the novum in science fiction.
Ooh, what that?
Novum is basically the thing that makes science fiction. To give you a more like definite definition, it's to describe the scientifically plausible innovations of science fiction. So people are not putting 5G inside shoes, or at least I don't know if there's 5G sort of chips powerful enough that are, battery powered that you could fit inside a shoe. So that itself is science fiction, right? That's not a thing that has happened. So I thought that was pretty cool, but we don't really find that out until towards the end of the season. I felt like they should have ran with that. Okay. And they should have made it, this company that is doing that is actually doing it to mind control people. Like, you then just go off the fucking deep end.
Yeah, let me see those zombies, and let me see, I don't know, they kept calling homeless people in this story the unhoused people, which, quick tangent, is weird to me. I think if you're going to make a word upgrade, it should just be people first language. So it's like people who are unhomeless.
Homeless refers to someone not having a home. These people might have a home on the streets. They just don't have a house. They're unhoused.
Oh, is that the discrepancy?
I think so. I think that's sort of the more kinder word. Homelessness has a much more darker.
Oh, there's definitely a stigma attached to the word homeless. Like that is irrefutable.
Unhoused, because homeless. Yeah. So I think unhoused is sort of the better phrase.
Yeah, but something about that felt like the untethered and the something about it for me was like, this is even more strange. Like, I think people without homes sounds, I don't know.
I think
I'm nitpicking. Yeah, but if they would have made this like population of people without homes, the zombies that rose up and like started attacking the city in like this post-apocalyptic like cool way, I think that would have at least made for more entertainment or something.
But that would tap into the unfounded fear that homeless people are more likely to commit crimes, when actually they're more likely to have crimes committed to them.
Well, maybe if they created like a utopia and then everybody wanted to be a part of that, and then something. Just go a little bit further.
Something with the 5G that was way more insidious. Like, they should have had the bigger corporation to be way more insidious. They also, they had some really cool scenes with these animated clay figurines. And they didn't really lean into that. That was the thing about
they forgot about that.
Yeah, there was one scene where a garbage can talks, and Keith is like, makes a comment about how garbage cans all look alike. He's like, what garbage cans all look alike, and he sort of flips it or makes it like a racial issue, which I thought was sort of funny. But they should have leaned more into that.
Yeah.
And you literally have like a built-in Deus Ex Machina. Like, you have a way.
I'm not understanding.
So yeah,
I loved Ex Machina, but yeah.
So basically, it means it's a plot device. God in the machine.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever heard of this?
No. Keep going.
All right. So the God in the machine is a plot device in which a writer or creator uses some sort of like brush away to explain a plot to get someone from point A to point B that doesn't necessarily make sense.
Give me an example in another movie.
I can't. I'll give an example in
God
this case.
and the Machine.
Yeah.
So who's God? Lamorne is God, and the pen is the machine.
No. You're getting very confused. It's just a plot device to say, all right. I'll give it a random example. All right, so you are in a crowded room and there's a bomb that's about to go off. You're like, how do you defuse this bomb? And you're like, okay. Oh, thank God we have a bomb diffuser who just came back from Iraq. They're just right here.
Oh, thank you.
So you see this all the time in films.
Yes.
Like all the
like
time.
Some sort of like ironic divinity or
yeah,
just like
it's just
right place, right time.
Like one in a million chances, and here it is. That's like Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, it's God in the machine. It's just a way that writers and creators can sort of get from point A to point B without having to do a lot of work.
Deus Ex Machina. Duh Ex Machina.
Yes.
I think.
And this show has a Deus Ex
I
Machina.
think it's duh. Because it's French, right?
Deus Ex Machina built. Anyway, let me get to the point. It has a built-in Deus Ex Machina inside its very structure, which is any character, or Keith specifically, if he needs to know something, he could just have any inanimate object come alive and tell him that.
Yes, you are
right?
correct. I understand what you're saying now.
So you could do really bizarre things, right? You could have these objects seeing things and telling him, and him knowing things that he should not know at all. And now you're just you literally,
like the black phone.
Yeah. Yes, you could literally do anything.
And you chose to do nothing.
Yeah, and they just didn't
Y'all could have
use
done
it
anything.
effectively. It was so frustrating because I think that was the fantastical element of the first season that made me super interested in continue watching it. And then this season you have this science fictional element of 5G and shoes. And you could have really gone, like they reference like Pizzagate, and they reference all these scandals. You could have really made that the whole thing. And I feel like this show didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah, and even at one point, Blake Anderson was like, "Oh, this is like QAnon." Like
QAnon,
yes,
like
they did the fun wordplay. I was like,
that.
"Okay, make it this big culty thing," and they were like, "No, we're just gonna be outraged that this is happening and try to diffuse it." And it was very like, what is it, an improv? Like they didn't protect the freak. Like, don't do this. Don't just be like, don't try to explain it all away or rationalize it. Like we're willing to suspend disbelief if you just keep going there. But they like, it almost felt like they were like, we're doing too much. Let's scale back. It's like, no, keep going, take it there. Because the thing, you remember with the koala in season 1, or that was so funny. Just like everybody's caring about this koala, and then there's just like these big love fests about this koala, but nobody cares about the black man, and it just like heighten, and it was like, yes.
They should have done more of that. They did have a scene where there's a like child activist.
Yes, Luna Johnson.
And that is very funny. And it turns out that Keith Knight goes on this show.
It's like, who's your kin?
Who's your kin? It turns out that his ancestors were like the one of the few black slave owners.
Yes.
Which destroys his image. It's like
it was hosted by Doc Noir.
Doc Noir.
That was
great
so
character.
Funny. There were so many funny parts of the show.
And I feel like they wanted to do this they tried to do too much, right? Like you lean into the hilarity or like the chaos of, child activists. I think they should have leaned into that.
Do it.
Yeah.
If they looking, give them a show.
And then you have this potential for a mustache twirling, nonprofit for profit. Have you ever heard this?
Yes.
Right? So nonprofit for profit, that should have been your mustache twirling. And they're like trying to put, 5G in people's shoes. And now they're trying to put it inside the homeless's, like the unhoused skin, or they're trying to do like something really nefarious.
And then there were other times where I was like, oh, I could see like Laura and Ayanna hooking up. And then there's going to probably maybe be this like, oh my gosh, like, the social activist is now sleeping with like a big capitalist.
Yes,
like, what are they going to do with this? And then they did nothing. I was like, wait, there was a little bit of sexual tension here, and maybe it wasn't happening. I don't know. At every chance they could have like made a move on this show, they decided to like friend zone themselves. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, I think with that being said,
oh hell,
like I don't think there's really much else to say. Is that
should people watch it?
I think
because we did just fucking destroy it. Those were a lot of sides with it.
I think people can watch this to see very short sketches that are very funny, right?
Yes.
Like there's a whole scene where all the roommates are gathered together, and at this point, Ayanna, her newspaper has gone under, so she has to live in with the three men. And the father's here, and the father, who's his Hotep father, Clovis, ends up having to like admit that he eats pussy. Very funny scene, sort of perfect, like a perfect set scene for how to write like a short little sketch. And then you have a sketch with, as you mentioned, Dark Noir, where a black activist who's like, Black Lives Matter, fuck the police. Turns out that he has black ancestors who are one of the few black slave owning people. It's just played so well. Like they could have done a lot more of that kind of absurdity.
Yeah, and that's the magic of Atlanta. Atlanta's like, oh no, we're gonna take it there. We're just gonna do a random episode that has nothing to do with nothing, and we don't have to explain. Like, it's just gonna be insane. I do have an essential question to ask you, which I was gonna ask earlier. I'm sorry I interrupted you earlier.
But the other thing is that they keep on mentioning Keith Knight as a superhero, and they should have leaned into his superhero is his ability to talk to inanimate objects and to get information from inanimate objects.
And near the end, he wasn't even a cartoonist anymore. I was like, he hasn't drawn in a year at this point.
Yeah.
And now one of the people in the unhoused community, the homeless people, who I really did enjoy that they were featuring like homeless people, like this one character who was homeless, who was regularly like, he was got a series regular on the show, and he kind of became sort of like a part of the movement and everything. He's very well dressed. I guess everybody was very chicly dressed, and I get it. They were really trying to say like, let's fuck this stigma on homeless people being stinky and smelly and
because
having holes
unhoused, not having a house.
Correct.
Unhoused is many different kinds of people.
And I like that they pushed our thinking there, but there were times where I'm just like, at this point, they're not even like cartoons and drawings anymore. And then one drawing near the end of the season, I was like, now that looks like a second grader drew it. Like, give a little bit more effort. I think Keith Knight, maybe the creator, sort of got lost in like what you do well, which we all have done, right? We've all forgotten for a minute, like, what do I do really, really well? Let me just go back to that.
Well, we don't know that. I think you have to be careful when you're making film. There are so many different kinds of people. There are producers, executive producers. There are, the men in the suits that are saying,
well,
hey,
he had a say.
Again, we don't know. Like, he could have written this whole thing, and like this could have been a 16.
Right. I see what you're saying now.
They only had 8 episodes, so you're sort of limited in what you can do. You have 22 minutes. He could have had this whole other thing. Like, actually, we're cutting your budget, and to do animation, to do mixed media costs extra money, right? So maybe those scenes had to be nixed, and he was like, shoot,
but that was the whole show,
right? Again, but you don't know with these kinds of things. So I think you have to be very careful unless you have like hard data to see like, hey, the reason this didn't happen. All we know is that of what we watched, and
you're correct. I misspoke.
Yeah, it's fine.
Do you think you can be a social activist online and have as great an impact with ethical standards?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So there is not one activist on the internet right now that you think is like, this person is doing the work that needs to be done.
I would say if they're just doing it online, they are jerking themselves off.
What if they have anxiety about doing things outside, but they've made like a lot of social impact? Because I disagree with you.
Well, you look at like organizing. You need people in the background typing on their computer, organizing, running Facebook groups.
But what if they're raising money and making sure that money is allocated appropriately? They're just doing it from their home.
That's different. I'm talking about what Keith Knight does in the show, which is saying like, hey, y'all, I'm out here and just like talking about activism.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. When I say a social media activist, that's what I refer to as someone.
So you think a social media activist is different from an activist who has social media handles?
Correct. Right.
But didn't Keith Knight get on the mic at a couple rallies and speak up and beat the streets and try to give the unhoused population jobs and shoes?
So up and about halfway through the season, he is just talking to his followers online. He's drawing things, and then he wants to be like, well, I actually want to do something physical. So he moves from.
You don't think those political comics were moving the mark on activism in any way? Are you saying right now that art doesn't engender empathy?
Someone very jokingly calls him like an artivist.
Yeah. You don't think art can have an impact? Ooh,
I think
it's a pretty bold statement.
Does when you talk about activism, that's a good question. I don't know if there's an answer for it right now. My hesitancy, talking specifically about, I'm not so much concerned with art per se. I'm talking so much just the way social media is structured, which is essentially to stroke your own ego.
Yeah,
And
I
so
can see that.
if you're on social media and you're calling out racism and you're calling out homophobia and you're doing all this, you're sort of in this echo chamber, right?
Yes,
Because
I agree.
no one's gonna hear that and change their opinions.
Yeah.
Because
They
social
might
media,
be inclined to say like, oh, I felt that this was an important cause, but now I see really the nuances and how this is important. Because I'm not going to sit here and act like I haven't learned things on social media by listening directly to a person who's Muslim, directly to a person who wears a hijab, directly to a person who's been adopted. Like, it's like, but I was already on that side of the issue.
Right. No. So what you're talking about then is education, where I'm talking about the structure of how social media says, like, I think you're talking about education and information being passed through the social media platform, through a social media platform.
That's not a form of activism? I wasn't educated by someone's activism?
That is. I'm talking about social media, like social media activist who is like, y'all, like, you know, Black Lives Matter and this person was killed. Like, you need to, you know, support, like, blah, blah, blah. Where if you're explaining and sort of giving a presentation or a lecture on the nuances, I'm talking about virtue signaling and
okay, you're talking about performative and
yes, yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, what if you are a creator who is disabled and you create nail content and yoga content, but you also create like, this place isn't accessible for the following reasons, like.
Yeah, does that make you an activist? I guess what is an activist?
Look it up.
I don't know.
And then we'll wrap up.
What is an activist?
That stuff matters.
A person who campaigns to bring about political or social change. Yeah, so
it didn't say every day. It says person who campaigns.
No, campaigning. So I guess social media is a way to campaign.
Correct.
Or to present your view.
Correct.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I would love for y'all to tap in on this conversation, because what really is an activist nowadays? Because you can have a whole bunch of different content, and then every now and then you can call attention to a greater cause, a worthy cause. Does that mean you're not an activist or not? I don't know. With that being said, Ben, why don't you warp up the show?
All right. So in conclusion, check out Woke Season 2. Watch it on the background. Woke Season 1 is way, way better. I wish this show had gotten more funding and more time to tell the stories that it wanted to tell. I feel like there were 4 or 5 different storylines that could have been told over, 4 or 5 seasons. I think, it's the way of the world right now. TV shows need to like catch us really quickly and move really fast. And I think Woke had a lot of great ideas, but didn't really stick the landing.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Sci-Fi Podcast. Up next, we will be discussing the book Darkly. Go get it, Ben. It's right there. Darkly. It's by Leela Taylor, and it's about the history of Afro-Goth. If you are a goth black girl out there, a black person, I always just default to black girl. If you are a goth black out there, this is the book for you. It is a visceral horror, inherent gothiness of Black America and her own story of being in the goth scene. So it's kind of like a biography, right?
Yeah.
And it's perfect for spooky season. So be sure to read Darkly. Listen to it on Audible, like I will also be doing along with the book. And we will see y'all next week for the show. Bye, y'all.